I felt like I was constantly in a cycle of being so unhappy all of the time, and it literally felt like I was unhappy for the majority of the month. I literally felt like the PMS stage lasted for 3 weeks out of the month, and then I had like 1 week of feeling great, if that. And I just constantly felt in this perpetual state of sadness and unhappiness, and I really didn't understand why. Like, I was genuinely so unhappy all the time, and I always say this, but I always used to think that everybody hated their life because I hated my life so much. I hated my situation, and I thought that everybody else who was happy, I thought they were pretending to be happy. That was genuinely the way that I used to think about life and about the world. Hey girl, I am back from my mental breakdown. I think I'm just about there. I'm feeling so much better after Friday. No, was it it was Thursday that I filmed that video. I'm feeling so much better after that. I had a weekend away in the city, and I don't know what it is about the city, but it just really makes me feel so happy. I just feel like I'm meant to be in the city. So that was kind of like a reminder of everything that I'm working towards, basically. Today I wanted to tap more into like my big sister side, because I'm kind of sick of moping and wallowing in my own sadness. It is not the vibe. It's not what I'm wanting to do. And it also doesn't make me feel great to be wallowing all the time, even though the past few weeks when I've done videos where I'm like, oh, like it is very therapeutic when I am talking about it, and I feel so much better once I filmed it. But sometimes like I don't know, I feel like I'm kind of in an era right now where I don't want to be dwelling and I don't want to be stuck where I am, but I kind of guess that's my situation, and I have to honor and acknowledge those emotions. So I've kind of been going through that at the moment, just being forced to really deal with emotions, and I think that reflects in my videos, the things that I talk about. But I wanted to keep it a little bit lighter today, I guess. I guess it's probably not going to be light because we're talking about happiness and why you might always feel depressed, basically, because I feel like I would say like before 2023, I felt like I was constantly in a cycle of being so unhappy all of the time, and it literally felt like I was unhappy for the majority of the month. So I know that like as women, we have periods and we have our cycle, and I literally felt like the PMS stage lasted for 3 weeks out of the month, and then I had like 1 week of feeling great, if that. And I just constantly felt in this perpetual state of sadness and unhappiness, and I really didn't understand why, because my life wasn't that much different from the people around me who seem to be really happy. And I'm a young girl, I'm 25 years old, so I should be enjoying my life, I should be happy all the time, or that's what I thought. So we're gonna unpack all of that today, and we're gonna go into it, and I'm gonna share with you guys how I've actually kind of shifted my mindset to actually feel okay, like feel good the majority of the time, feel good like I would say 90% of the time. But it was not an easy journey, let me tell you that for one, but there are easy mindset shifts that you can implement and put into your life to make you feel a little bit better. And like all the things that I'm saying, they are actually easy, they are simple things, and they're simple little mindset shifts, but I mean they're not easy in the sense that it takes a while. When you embark upon any kind of like healing or self-development, self-love journey, it all takes a while. Like nothing's going to change overnight, because the damage that you feel like you have, like the trauma and all of that kind of stuff, that is, well, that's basically been with you for as long as you've been alive. So there's a lot of unlearning to do. There's a lot of healing work to do in that process, so it's never gonna come overnight. But everything that I'm gonna share with you guys is very simple, and they are mindset shifts that you can start implementing into your life now to really make lasting change. I used to feel so discouraged because I would watch all the self-development videos, I would read all the self-development books, and I would implement all the things that they were telling me to implement, but because I wasn't seeing results straight away, and because my life wasn't actually changing that much in the present moment, I just felt so disheartened. Because when I was feeling good, it was okay, I was doing all these things and they were making me feel a little bit better. But when I was feeling bad, I would just reflect on everything and all the work that I'd put into myself, all the healing that I'd done, and feel like it was all redundant and pointless, and I'd feel even worse than I did before. And I think this is why I take that kind of angle on self-development content on my channel. Like I kind of talk of it from the perspective like sometimes self-development content can be really detrimental to your mental health and just your outlook and perspective of the world, because you're just kind of expecting these things, these are all life hacks and quick fixes, you're expecting them to change your life, when the reality is that none of them are going to change your life overnight. They might make you feel happy, or they might, I don't even want to say they'll make you feel happy, like they will literally cure your depression, because I definitely don't think they will. But I think if you're kind of at a mid-range level, these things do elevate your frequency a little bit and they can enhance happy feelings, but I don't think that they create or give you happiness. And I think that's something that you need to know from the get-go, that self-development videos are not supposed to fix your problems. You are the only person who can fix your problems. So we'll get that out of the way. The first thing that I identified about myself when I was realizing that I was feeling unhappy the majority of the time, like I was genuinely so unhappy all the time, and I always say this, but I always used to think that everybody hated their life because I hated my life so much. I hated my situation, and I thought that everybody else who was happy, I thought they were pretending to be happy. That was genuinely the way that I used to think about life and about the world, and it literally shook my brain into, I don't know where I'm going with that. It literally blew my mind to find out that people actually don't hate their life and people actually really love their life and appreciate and enjoy it. It really shocked me to realize that. So that was like the first thing that was very like mind-blowing to me, that people actually enjoy their life. And I think it was in like 2020, and I was watching Hailey Gamba, and this was when I had this realization, like, oh my god, people don't hate their life, because she mentioned it in the video. I'm sure it was Hailey Gamba. So I think understanding that people do actually enjoy their life does give you a little bit of hope that I didn't used to have. I genuinely didn't used to have that. It was kind of like I didn't really know what I was working towards when I was trying to feel happier. So I think seeing other people living the life that you want and seeing that happiness is possible for other people is so helpful when you are wanting to get out of a shitty situation in your life. I also think the number one thing that stops us from being happy is the fact that we tell ourselves that we have to be happy. I used to be so critical about myself when I would feel down or low, or I would complain or feel any kind of adverse emotions, because the people around me in my life didn't like that. They were very much probably intimidated by the fact that I could openly express my emotions and talk about them, and they didn't like it because it probably made them feel like they needed to confront their emotions. So they would just always shut me down and always try to say to me like, oh, just be positive, like get over it, it's fine, life's hard, we all deal with it. So I just always thought, well, life's hard, like I'm just gonna have to get over it. And you don't. Like, you can acknowledge the fact that you are feeling a certain kind of way, and you can be sad, you can complain, you can moan, you can acknowledge where you are right now, and that doesn't make you any less of a good person. Because I was brought up around people who thought that you needed to be happy all the time, and when I wasn't happy all the time, I was treated negatively, or I was pushed to the side, or I was told to shut up and I was left alone. I wasn't given the attention or the love that I needed. I genuinely thought that I had to be happy in order to be loved, and that is simply not the case. I think the more that we attach ourselves to this label of happiness and feeling like we need to be happy all of the time, the more that we actually strip ourselves of the joy of actual happiness. My goal, my aspiration in life, when people would ask me, I used to always say that when I was older, I just wanted to be happy. That was like my, you know, when people say like, oh, I want to open a salon, or oh, I want to fly to the moon, or oh, I want to be a footballer. I was always the girl who was like, I just want to be happy. And that makes me really sad, because happiness isn't a constant state of being. And now I know that chasing happiness and trying to be happy all of the time, or having happiness as your end goal, is absolutely ridiculous. Because I think when you're thinking of it like that, you're detaching yourself from happiness. You are putting yourself here, and happiness is over there. It's an end goal. But happiness is actually something that you can feel in the tiny little moments of life. I also just think in general, when you have high expectations of things, like let's say for example with birthdays and Christmas and New Year's Eve and big events like that, what you get really excited for and you have really high expectations for them probably. I don't know if any of you guys have noticed, but those occasions actually always end up being a little bit underwhelming, because you have set such high expectations for them, for you to feel a certain kind of way and for them to be a certain kind of way, and they never turn out that way, because that is not how life works. You can't control everything. You can't control when you will not be happy. And then when you do try to control that, you are just going to be met with disappointment, and you are going to ultimately feel even more sad because you have been let down. Allowing yourself to actually feel all of your emotions and not feel bad about it is actually something that has helped me personally so much, because it's made me feel normal. For one, I genuinely never thought that I was normal. I just thought that I was dramatic and overly emotional emotional and that no one wanted to hear me or listen to me, or no one understood me or related to me. I just felt like an outlier. I felt like no one got it. But like, to actually have that realization that no, you're allowed to feel your emotions and it's fine, and there are people in the world who actually will hold that space for you to feel them. And then you realize that once you've felt the emotions and once you've been validated and acknowledged, you realize how quick you can move on from those emotions rather than keeping them stuck inside of you and just being really frustrated because you can't speak your mind. And I wish that more people knew this. I really do wish it, because the people in my life, the people who I see around me, I know that they are very, very unhappy, but they're the same people who would tell me don't feel your emotions, and they would try to be positive. They would always say be positive, but honestly, they are the most unhappy people that I know. My friend, she is like the ultimate positive person. Like, she is so positive about everything. When bad things happen to her, she's kind of like, oh well, whatever, it is what it is. And to an extent, I do think that is a good mindset to have, but I think it can also be a little bit toxic when you are kind of just accepting anything that happens to you and saying, well, it is what it is, blah blah blah. I think that can also be a little bit detrimental, because you're not allowing yourself to feel your emotions and you're just basically ignoring it because you're trying to gloss over the fact that bad things are happening to you because you don't want to feel them. And I can very much see through that. Like, when people are glossing over problems, when people are trying to be positive, when I know deep down their life is going to shit, like, I can sense that so much. You can really sense a difference between someone who's actually happy and positive and people who are just trying to be positive. There is such a difference, and you can just feel it from the energy. And I myself feel like I have had to distance myself from people like that because it just wasn't healthy. It wasn't healthy for me to be around people who would just kind of think that I was really strange when I would be emotional or talk about my feelings, or I just sensed that kind of judgment from them of like, oh my god, this girl, does she shut up? There were times where I would kind of be emotional. I would need a friend to lean on, and I would vent about these things, and I just kind of felt like the vibe that it was like, are you done yet? Are you finished? Because you need to be positive now. I don't like that. And I also believe, like, all of my family, like my parents, are very much like that as well. Like, they don't hold space for emotions at all, unless maybe it's like in a highly fueled argument or alcohol is involved. Like, we're not allowed to feel our emotions, and that has led me growing up to just feel so frustrated and so unhappy. And it makes sense why I was so unhappy for most of my life, because I was just being fucking ignored. Like, no one would listen to me, no one would hear me out or validate me. And everything that I was feeling, now that I look back on it, now that I've done a lot of inner work, I've realized that all of those feelings were so valid, and I was so normal for feeling that way. But because I didn't feel like I was normal for feeling that way, I felt so much worse, and it literally made me hold on to tiny little problems, things that happened like when I was a little kid, I've been holding on to for all this time, because it's like my body and my inner child just knew that I needed to remember that so that I could address it later on in life. I don't know. I also think it can be very easy to be stuck in victim mindset when you are constantly in a place where you're feeling unhappy all of the time. I was the biggest victim when I was younger, like when I was a teenager and when I was like going into my early 20s, I was the biggest victim because I started to gain a little bit of awareness of what had happened to me when I was younger, and like the things I had to deal with, and I started to become a lot more self-assured and understand that I actually wasn't crazy, because I had to literally, oh my god, you do not know the mindset work that I've had to do on myself and like on my own to not go insane growing up in the family that I've grown up in and the environment that I've grown up in. It's unreal. But I was very much understanding all the things that I'd been through and realizing it and realizing that it was wrong, and I became such a big victim, and it was soothing for me. It made me feel good to be a victim, because what happens when you're a victim is that people around you, maybe like your boyfriend or maybe like work colleagues or something like that, they are going to give you that extra love and attention that you have probably always been craving all of your life. So when you start talking about these things and you kind of open up to other people, and then they're shocked, they're like, oh my god, I can't believe that happened, and then that reinforces your victim mindset. It's like, oh my god, and it's kind of like a feedback loop. And I just kind of got to a point where I lived for that. Like, I lived for just being validated, and I lived for people finally seeing me and understanding that what I went through was not good. And because it felt so good, because I'd never experienced that before, I really leaned into that victim mindset, and it served me for such a long time in my life. I would say like my early, like teens to early 20s, I was just such a victim. But what you realize about the victim mindset is that it is literally an illusion. You can choose to be a victim, or you can choose to not be a victim. You can be someone who has had all of these bad things happen to them, and you can choose to not be a victim, and you can choose to actually process your emotions, go through it all, talk about it when you need it, talk about it when it really comes up in a very highly emotional way, but then let it go. Don't hold on to it, and don't lean on other people to give you validation and support and love and care. Instead, give that to yourself. Like, if you want to feel like a victim, you can do that, but just try to emphasize more on giving the love and attention to yourself, and not focusing so much on the things that happen to you, but focusing how you can make yourself actually feel better in this moment. I know it feels good to be a victim, but it is genuinely just gonna hold you back. And when I talk about wanting to be a victim, I mean it in the sense that being a victim is really easy. Like, it's the easy option. It's an easy way to earn attention and respect and validation from the people that you love, and you don't really have to do anything at all. You just have to wallow in your self-pity and what happened to you. That was all I did throughout my teenage years, and I do think this is why I'm at the point of my life now where I feel like I've not really achieved anything. I feel like I've not really got anything to show for my life. I genuinely think it's because I was just in a victim mindset for so long, and I was just lapping it up, and I was enjoying it. It was serving me for a moment in time, but I've gotten to a point now where it does not serve me. It actually bores me a little bit to talk about things that happened to me. Like last week in my video on Friday, you can literally see, like, that is a pure live example of me and how I felt in that moment. Like, I was just so sick of everything. Like, I didn't want to talk about my problems. I didn't want to, even though I probably was talking about my problems in that video, but you can just see that I am so tired and I am so exhausted, because the past 2 weeks had really been very confronting, and me having to deal with loads of different childhood traumas and shit like that that came up. So yeah, you can really see it in that video, but I just kind of, I'm over it. Like, I'm so past that point of wanting to be a victim, because I just know that it just makes me feel pathetic. It makes me feel like I don't have control over my own life. It makes me feel like I am genuinely a victim and that there's no hope for me. Another reason that you might be perpetually unhappy is probably because of your environment. And I talk about this all the time, but it's actually crazy how a change of environment can completely change who you are as a person, or not who you are as a person, but how you feel. When I go to Thailand and I go there for a month and I stay there, I feel like a different human being. I feel so different. I feel so much more positive and happy, and just, I feel lighter. I feel like a weight has been lifted off me. And I think it's just from not being in my hometown, not being surrounded by my family and all of the people who've hurt me in my life. I think it's genuinely just all of that. And then also the fact that I'm in a different place and it's inspiring, and I'm being challenged, I'm out of my comfort zone. Like, my problems become different. My problems when I'm away and traveling become discomfort and like being in new scary situations. But I would 100% choose that kind of discomfort and unhappiness. Not unhappiness, but you know what I mean. I would 100% choose that over the unhappiness of day-to-day life that I used to have just living in my hometown. Your environment is so detrimental to who you are as a person, which is why obviously we can't just up and leave and change our environment straight away. I know that better than probably anyone. I'm working on it, but you know, I know that we can't just do that. So it's so important for you to create safety and happiness and a safe place within yourself and within your current life now, because otherwise you are just going to stay stuck in it. You can dream about the dream life, and you can dream about how easy it will be when you live on your own and you're doing all the things that you want to do and you're surrounded by people who are really nice and supportive, but that's not going to help you until you're actually there. Like, what are you going to do now in this present moment to actually get to that point? Because I can guarantee if you're just being stuck and you're a victim of your situation, your environment and situation right now, you are going to find it so much harder to actually get to where you want to be, because you're so bogged down with your environment. My camera's moved. It's because I had to take a call. But what was I saying? Are you fucking No. There are genuinely so many factors in your environment or about your environment that can make your life feel so much more difficult, and I know this very well, but it's crazy. I think like knowing what it feels like to be in my family home and know how that feels, or just be around certain people or in a certain environment, aka my hometown, and then not being in that environment. I think having the comparison and seeing how different the worlds can be, that people choose to make life this hard and think in a certain kind of way. But anyway, I feel like we're getting sidetracked there. But your environment can genuinely bog you down. And when I talk about the environment, I mean the people as well. Like the people who you are surrounding yourself with can genuinely drain your soul. I find that when I'm spending too much time with certain people, a lot of people who are like, who I've grown up with, and like people from, I want to say my past and like that part of my life, if I spend time with people like that, I genuinely feel the soul being dragged out of me. Like I feel like I've got nothing. And I think that's kind of reflected very much in my last few videos, I think, because I'd spent a lot of time with people like that and I genuinely just felt like I had nothing left. I felt like I had nothing left to give because I genuinely feel like my soul had been sucked out of me. When you're spending a lot of time with people, let's just say for an example, people who are really anxious. I have learned that I can't spend time with people who are really, really anxious because I am very inclined to be anxious about certain things, and I've had to work through that a lot myself. I've had to do a lot of like exposure therapy and just basically putting myself out there and doing really uncomfortable things, putting myself out of my comfort zone. I've really done so many things to overcome anxiety to a point where I don't feel like I have anxiety. I feel quite confident. I can do a lot of things. I don't get nervous about things, like even things like interviews and things like that. I genuinely don't get nervous for those kind of things. Saying that, but I've not had an interview in ages. But anyway, I don't get anxious or nervous about things, but I find that if I spend too much time with people who are really anxious and really on edge and really hyper vigilant and aware of things, it really drains me. Like it really takes everything out of me to be around people like that, because I guess it maybe like mirrors back that anxious side that I have had in me. I don't know, but it really drains you to spend time with people who are constantly on edge, because it makes you feel like you're that way too. And they do say that you are the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and I genuinely agree with that. I think since my circle has completely changed, like my people who I choose to spend time with, so my boyfriend, people at work, like I've got quite a few good work friends who I'm really close to. Basically like the people who are new in my life. I feel like I'm a completely different person now because I have changed up the people who I have in my life, and I very much limit spending time with people who I used to have in my life. I just think anxious energy can really rub off on you, as well as like insecure and jealous and bitter energy. Now I know that we're all allowed to feel those feelings, we're all allowed to feel jealous and insecure or whatever. It's perfectly normal, but there are people who you just know, like you can really tell that they're so insecure and they're so unhappy about it, and like there's nothing that they've even tried to do about it. And I can't spend time with people like that, because when you're spending time with people like that and you're a really happy person and you're really upbeat because you've done all the inner work and you're trying to like be a better person, like it's not easy for me, but I make it work and I've gotten to a point where I am a happy person. When you're around people who are unhappy, they subconsciously or consciously want to drag you down to their level because they don't like seeing other people happier than them. And it's the sad reality of life. That's what people are like. If people are unhappy, I've even felt this myself. Like I would say when I was in my teenage years, I used to be so jealous of like everyone and so bitter and anxious and just so unhappy with myself that I would prey on maybe other people's downfall a little bit. And that sounds awful to say now because I would never do that now. Like that is not on my agenda, but I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to feel so miserable and so out of control in your own life that you can only hope that other people fall down to your level, and that's not a good place to be. And when you are surrounding yourself with people who are, you just get the vibe that they are trying to pull you down, or you just feel like every time you spent time with them you just feel really deflated and feel exhausted. Maybe they've vented about all of their problems and they've just basically talked all about themselves or talked about all of their problems and how they're anxious and da da da. When you finish with those interactions, like you feel so drained, those people are just going to keep you stuck. They're just going to try and drag you down, whether you like it or not. And it's within your power for you to limit your access to those people. I'm not saying cut them out, but when you limit your time with these people, you're taking your power back Since I've gotten a little bit more kind of aware of how people and interactions make me feel, I've noticed that there are just certain people who I really have to limit my time with. And I think if you're in a situation where you feel like your environment and the people around you are dragging you down, it's really just on you to learn how to be happy by yourself and learn how to spend time with yourself and be content with that, so that you don't feel like you're relying on spending time with other people who are just going to drag you down. Because I personally would so much rather spend time with myself than spend time with anyone else who has got maybe like a subconscious hidden agenda of not wanting you to succeed. Because that is the vibe that I got from like all of my old friends, all of like people who are still in my life now. Like I get those vibes that they're happy for me to a certain point, like I can thrive to a certain point, but if I exceed that, they don't like it. And they're the people who go a little bit cold, they don't want to speak to me, they go really weird with me, and I just don't like that energy, I don't like that vibe. And I know you're probably thinking, cut them out, but I'm a sensitive girly, okay? And I still care about these people, and I'm not about cutting people out cold turkey unless they've really done me wrong, because I know that they're just operating from a place of hurt themselves. But yeah, I'm getting really sidetracked here, but yeah, if you're in a situation where your environment is dragging you down and the people around you, just know that you have the control, or you have the power to control your energy and control who you give your energy to. And when you maybe can't control that, maybe you've got to give a lot of energy to work and a lot of energy to maybe your family because you're living in your family home, you need to find grounding things for you to do, for you to come back to your body and just restore your energy. So whether that be yoga, whether that just be sitting in silence, whether that be journaling, going for a long walk, things like that, just learning what it is for you that makes you feel good and it restores your energy back. Even if you have like a little weird ritual, not a weird ritual, but even if you have a quirky little ritual where you sage your room, or you light incense, or you light a candle, I don't know. Having something like that can feel quite cathartic, and it can feel quite freeing, and it can give you your energy back to a certain extent. And then once you do that, you will realize that your environment will not be a prison anymore. Like I have reached a point where I'm actually very happy and very content, and I enjoy my life, and I see so much hope and so much light at the end of the tunnel, and I see that. But I never used to be like that before, and I used to have very limited hope, very limited self-worth, self-belief, and it would all ricochet into this general unhappiness feeling and this spiral of just being depressed all the time. But if I can find happiness and joy and create a different life for myself while I'm still in this environment, I am telling you right now that if you are in that situation too, you can do that as well. Like you do not need to wait until you are in the dream apartment in like New York City, or you're in your cute little cottage that you are manifesting in, or you're in your family home with your husband and your kids and blah blah blah. You don't need to wait for those moments. Like if I can find happiness like I've got now in this moment, even as like crazy my life can be, you can find it too, 100%. I keep getting interrupted. We love that. The final point that I wanted to mention is that happiness, I feel like people have really built up this concept of happiness and how happiness should look, and happiness in reality is genuinely nothing how we think it is going to be. Happiness is literally accessible to anyone. Anyone can access happiness at any given point of the day, and you can't control when that will be. And I think that is the problem within itself. That's probably the overarching theme of this video, is that I think we try to control happiness so much to the point that when we actually get these moments of happiness, so we get these, let's say we graduate, or we go on our dream holiday, or we meet our dream partner, we build up these moments, we build up the anticipation and the expectations, and then when it actually comes, we're so disappointed. This really does link in with the first point. I probably should have said this with the first point, but we move. But happiness is truly within the small, unexpected moments in life. It's literally right now, the sun shining through into my window for the first time in about 3 weeks because we've had no sunshine, and the sun on my skin and the warmth and the amazingness that is giving me right now, okay? Or happiness is the fact that maybe if I'm on switchboard at work and I have to answer loads of calls, happiness is when no one calls me and I don't have to deal with anyone's shit. That is happiness to me. Or happiness is when I finish work at 5 p.m. after a really long and grueling, boring day, and I'm walking out of those office doors and I am thriving. That is happiness for me. Like all of those tiny little moments, that we just take for granted and we just expect them to come because they happen so frequently. Once you start tapping into those feelings and you really start appreciating them, those feelings give you life force. They give you power to get through the day, to get through and achieve all the things that you want to achieve. You have to start noticing the happiness and the joy and the gratitude in every single little small moment that you can, and really tune into that frequency. And even when your life's hard, like even the last few weeks that have been really difficult for me, I still managed to stay relatively happy and upbeat and positive, even though I don't really like that word, but I felt quite sane and I felt okay and I could get through it because I was tapped into the frequency of gratitude and just expecting anything to happen, expecting happiness in just the smallest little random moments, because that's when it feels so good. When happiness is unexpected, when something unexpected happens in your day and it just feels so good and you wasn't expecting it and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Like the happiness that is unexpected is the best happiness. That is the point that I'm trying to make. So stop being fixated on happiness and stop putting happiness on a pedestal, because it's genuinely something that you can experience and that anyone can experience in any given moment, like in any second. You could be feeling so down right now and in 5 minutes time you could feel so happy. Happiness is not linear. Like in the movies, you're not like working towards this grand pivotal moment where you'll be like, oh my God, I'm so happy now. Like that is not how life works. You can experience happiness every single day, but you're probably just not allowing yourself to feel happiness because you're not used to it. You're not used to recognizing what happiness is. You just have this idea of what happiness is based on what you see on social media and based on someone traveling to a really nice location thinking, oh, that looks good, I really like that, but not considering the fact that when you actually get to that location, everyone speaks a different language, you can't really understand what's going on, you don't really feel comfortable, maybe the temperature's different, your hair's going frizzy. You don't counter in all of those feelings because you just see the highlight reel of someone else doing that and you see the happiness. So when you actually get on that holiday, you might feel disappointed because as much as there is happiness and there's so much joy and so much to be grateful for within that holiday, because you've expected it to be life altering and amazing, but maybe in reality you're really jet lagged and you're really tired and you're not eating properly and you're not in a normal routine, so you don't feel great, and then you feel disappointed and then you feel like, oh my God, what's the point of life because nothing makes me happy. You're never going to be happy unless you find happiness right now. Okay, so that is all I'm going to say about this topic. I feel like this video has been so long because I've had to record it in sections because my phone keeps ringing. So I feel like when I piece this video together, it's going to be really long. But I hope I just gave you like the general essence of like what I think and like my perspective on happiness and how I have genuinely, despite all of the odds and like despite everything that I go through in life because I'm a human being, how I managed to actually feel on an average very, very happy. Whereas before, on average, I used to feel very, very depressed and I'd have the odd happy moment here and there. That is personally how I've done it, and how I've done it in a situation where it's not ideal and it's not harmonious to me, it's not in alignment to me, but I've still found happiness anyway. But it's just taken me time. It's taken me time to just change my way of thinking and rewire my brain a little bit. None of this advice, nothing that you hear online, like I said in the beginning, is going to be an overnight fix. You have to actively work towards changing your mindset and rewiring your brain with neuroplasticity, which is a thing. Look it up and it'll make it seem so much more legit and valid and make you want to do it more. But like, you have to do that daily. You have to do that every single day, and it'll take a while, but then one day you'll get to a point where you just feel really happy. You wake up and you feel so grateful and so blessed and amazing, and you're like, whoa, when did this happen? Like, when did this feeling come to me? That's when you know that you've come far, and that's when you know that you have done a good job and you've changed your life around. But it's not gonna happen overnight, okay? So don't think it's gonna happen overnight. Anyway guys, I love you so much. Thank you so much for watching. I am endeavoring to put out more positive content. Not positive, like I don't want to be putting like toxic positive content, but content like this, I'm endeavoring to put more of that out there so that I can help you guys as much as I am relating to you guys, because I have been through a lot of things and I have overcome a lot of things, and if anything that I say can help you guys to get out of a shitty situation or get out of a situation that I've probably been in before, that would make me so happy. Let me know in the comments any videos that you want me to film. If you are interested as well and you want to work with me one-on-one, I also have an option for that. I will leave the link to my one-on-one advice sessions, which are basically an opportunity for you to work with me one-on-one and just to have a more intimate conversation and for me to give you more tailored and personal advice. And it's at a very affordable rate as well for just anyone who feels like they need to talk to someone, they need to get something off their chest, they need to feel validated, seen and heard, because girl, like I said, I never felt validated or seen or heard, and there was a long time in my life where I didn't have people around me who could do that for me. And I would have killed for a service like this to be able to speak to somebody who has the mindset that I wanted to have and just get their viewpoint on it and just get their advice and just get their listening ear. So if that's anything that you're interested in, I will leave the link down below, and I would be very excited to work with you guys one-on-one. That would be so fun. I hope you guys all continue to have an amazing week, and I will speak to you in my next video. Bye!